He is.
I'm Aaron Tomlinson. Glad to be with you tonight, Derrick, and everybody that's watching by replay. Good to be with
Y-
you.
Yep, good to be here. Good to be. There's an old saying in old black church circles. It's better to be seen than to be viewed. So so if we're being seen and not being viewed, that it's a good day.
Yeah, it's for sure.
Yeah, or every day that's vertical, or every day that's above the dirt. All of
Yeah,
those are valid ones.
people used to ask my dad how it felt to get older, and he would always say, "Well, it's better than the alternative."
Yeah. Yeah, be better to be old as dirt than to be under the dirt.
Yeah, what a way to kick off Phreology Friday.
Yeah, a little death jokes today on Phreology Friday.
Uh,
So, what are you drinking today? What's in the glass today, Aaron?
all right, so this is a creation of my own. I haven't tasted it yet. It is sort of a martini. It's gin and vermouth with a little bit of simple syrup and some blood orange bitters. So we'll see.
Ooh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so let's see.
Me, I'm drinking a Kepe Garnacha.
Ah,
Yeah, there we go. And this is actually very good. Low, low acid, low tannin, very drinkable. Um,
nice.
this is actually a good thing. And I said I was kind of going easy today because I've been nursing a cough all week, and so if I cough, you guys please forgive me. But that's um, that's the deal. But
Yeah, I
we have
was
a. Go ahead, man.
one quick thing about the drink. I was going to put a egg white in it,
Oh,
and I went to the kitchen, opened up the refrigerator. I was all excited about my drink. We were out of eggs.
damn.
I didn't have time to run over to the neighbors and say, "Hey, you can I borrow an egg?"
That sounds amazing. I mean, that whole thing, gin, vermouth, simple syrup, and blood orange bitters. I'm gonna have to try that.
Dude, it's pretty good.
It's
I
yeah,
have to say, that's
yeah.
pretty good.
Maybe that's another thing we could do. We could do like a cocktail show where we don't uh, do traditional cocktails, but we concoct our own.
Hey, that would be great. That'd be
Yeah,
really cool. I like that.
yeah, that would be fun.
Hmm.
That and Tequila Tuesdays
I
between
know.
it's between all of this drinking, man. We're just going to be like pretty you know you know pretty buzzed during the week.
Yeah. So Derek, who are we going to piss off tonight?
you know, I always have my combat boots on, ready to kick religion in the nuts.
Yeah.
That's me. But tonight we want to talk about groupthink. Groupthink, and it's this is a thing, especially right now. This is a
Boy.
thing. This is a legitimate thing. And let me say this, but Aaron, you and I, we don't go back to the Bible a whole lot, but I'm gonna
Right.
go back to this one thing in the book of Genesis and the construction of the Tower of Babel. And it says that God looked down and said, "Behold, they are all of one mind and of one
Mhm.
tongue." And
Mhm.
they can do anything. And this is a funny thing because religion talks a lot about unity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so by religious standards, this should have been a good thing, right? It should have
Yeah.
been a good thing, but it wasn't. It was like people are all on the same page. Now they can do anything. And I thought about this, right? Because when well, first of all, let's talk about the definition. Definition of groupthink is the practice of thinking or making decisions as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual responsibility. Oh my
Mhm.
God. Let me say that again. The practice of thinking or making decisions as a group in a way that discourages creativity or individual responsibility. We're going to get to that individual responsibility thing, but this is the thing that when people are all on the same page, I believe that people being in unity can be good or bad. That there's a wide spectrum in between, the poles of that. And when people are on the same page to do good, in other words, that they say, what can I do that will not only benefit me but benefit others? That when that is the consensus, then I believe that really phenomenal, extraordinary things happen.
Hmm.
But when people get on the same page in a negative sense, and what comes to mind for me is the mob mentality. That a mob takes on a mind of its own.
Hmm.
When people are committed to do something evil, like uh, uh, the Salem witch trials,
Hmm.
you know, um, lynchings and things like that.
Hmm.
When people get on this group mentality, riots are another example. It's like people get on this mentality of destruction, and when
Hmm.
they do, it's like what you would normally do in normal circumstances under normal situations. It escalates into something really ugly, and you can't really predict what it leads to. And so I was just thinking about this because uh, I think that groupthink. Well, let me say this. This is the part where I kick religion in the nuts, right? That I think that religion is the absolute ultimate groupthink.
Hmm.
I think that people get on one accord, and it starts as something ostensibly good. If you start with the character or person of Jesus, and then it morphs and escalates into something really ugly. And that's where we are today, because what's being led by religion. I mean, you look at race relations, you look at abortion, you look at LGBTQ rights, um, immigration, all of these things. They are all driven by this group think. And here's the funny thing about groupthink. I heard something, and I think that it was Christopher Hitchens that said this, that is easier to deceive someone than it is to undeceive them.
Hmm.
You know, and so people have been so thoroughly conditioned, so thoroughly deceived, that now trying to deprogram them, or trying to contradict what they believe with something that is true,
Hmm.
gets to be an exercise. I mean, it's an uphill battle. So anyway, that's my opening salvo. Over to you, my brother.
So if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the social psychologist that did the initial research on this phenomena of groupthink, uh, one of the motivating factors and one of the things he studied was the failure of the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Mm,
And this is an interesting point because basically it was an autopsy on what went wrong with strategic planning and whatever with the Bay of Pigs.
yeah.
And out of that autopsy, this psychologist came up with this concept of groupthink, borrowing from, I think, George Orwell 1984 phrase or something he
Mhm.
uses in his novels. I can't remember. I
Yep.
read that book
No,
in
that's
high
that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
school. And so what's interesting about it, though, was when the Cuban Missile Crisis came up, Kennedy realized some of the mistakes that he made. And so he went out of his way to structure an anti-groupthink tank when they were dealing with the missile crisis,
Mhm.
and wanted to make sure there was independent thinking, wanted to make sure, because the idea in organizational psychology and things like that is when you have groupthink, you limit your options, you limit perspectives, because the idea is that everybody has to go along to get along. It's exactly what it says. Everybody has to think like the group. And if you have a strong leader in that group, then typically that strong leader is setting the agenda
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's going along with the leader, except one of the things I remember, and I used to teach this in leadership conferences before I was wiser. But sociologically, people don't follow the leader; they follow the small group that follows the leader. So there's a social, almost peer pressure dynamic that comes into play. There used to be a video that circulated years ago. I don't know if you would have seen it, where it almost looked, maybe it was Woodstock. I don't know if it was Woodstock, but it looked like a Woodstock type event. And this guy, just starts dancing all crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's watching him. And then a couple people start to mimic what he's doing and follow him. And once a few people started following this one guy, then everybody pretty soon started joining into this crazy dance, right?
Yep.
And I used to show that video clip and be like, and I was encouraging our leaders that, people don't really follow me when I was leading something. They're going to follow the people that are following me. So you have a lot of influence. You have more influence actually than I do.
Right.
Not realizing till later that I was fostering a groupthink mentality. And so the interesting thing about religion is, organizations that want to be successful, governments that want to be administrations, and I have tremendous respect for, can you imagine a politician doing that today? Like JFK wouldn't show up to the meetings because he didn't want to influence them. He would have them meet in separate groups and then bring their conclusions. Could you imagine a politician doing that today? But see, the outcome was what was important, being successful at the outcome and realizing that we need a greater mind than just one mind. And so what happens in groupthink is one mind is ruling all the other minds. And so if anybody if you come into a groupthink situation and you challenge the groupthink, now all of a sudden you're an outsider. You're a threat. You're actually perceived as a threat. You're not perceived as someone on the same team trying to solve a problem. You're perceived as a threat to the team because you disagree with the group. Right. And so organizations, whatever, try to structure things so that they don't have groupthink going on. But religion wants you to foster groupthink. It actually wants you to create a groupthink environment. And that was one of the things that was really the first peg, if you will, of my deconstruction was when I was in my bachelor program. I did a research paper for my social psychology class on groupthink. And I was like, holy shit, they're talking about my church. They're talking about my network. They're talking about every group within the church that I've ever been a part of. Like, we were actually trying to create this on purpose, not realizing the monster we were actually creating, or the limitations, the boundaries, and really setting ourselves up for failure by doing that. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like, religion is groupthink.
Yeah. And, fun fact here, that the Navy SEALs were born out of that whole, that delta between the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Okay.
And that JFK wanted something that was disruptive, that was that didn't operate according to the military orthodoxy, and that was where the Navy SEALs were born.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So
another
fun fact: I had an uncle. He was actually my dad's cousin, but we called him uncle because he was a lot older than us. But
yeah,
he was a pilot and a full bird colonel. I think that's the highest he got in the Air Force. But he was part of the one of the strategic planning groups for addressing the Cuban Missile Crisis. The way he would tell it, I sat at the table with JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Is this the cousin that also used to fly Air Force One?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I remember, man.
Yeah. He was a great guy. He hopped a train. I mean, just a fun Tomlinson fact. He hopped a train at 9 years old. Think about this, from like Little Rock, Arkansas to Chicago to go to the World's Fair in Chicago. He just like hoboed on a train. Wow. Like, he didn't pay for a ticket. He just like hopped a freight train or something. Chicago at 9 years old, and was gone for like 2 weeks or something, and hopped a train back.
That's
Can you
crazy.
imagine your 9-year-old being gone? But so he had some, he was special. He had some You're made of something when at 9 years old you're doing shit like that.
Yeah, when listen, we used to hop the trains when I was a kid. We used to hop the trains, but we used to ride from like from our neighborhood to like around Woodward Avenue so that we could catch the bus to the main library, near in the new center in Detroit. So
Sure.
that was kind of a thing that we did. But we used to hang out on the railroad tracks. But this like in when I think about deconstruction, right? Because deconstruction is a hot topic right now, um, in Christian circles, and
Right.
when people are deconstructing, part of the deconstruction process is disengaging from the group think and considering things discreetly or individually. And I think that um, one of the things about groupthink again, going back to our definition, our working definition, is that it discourages individual thinking. That individual thinking, I really believe that everybody, every human being has something unique and original to contribute to humanity. And
Mm.
and I think that when that thought, that um, being begins to express itself in a positive way, in a way that it not only benefits the individual but benefits humanity in a broader context, that is when humanity advances. That's when we move forward.
Hmm.
And groupthink stifles that. And I'm going to say something here to piss somebody else off, because now I'm going to go after politics and conservatism.
Yeah.
Because when we are conserving something, we say that there is something that is worth conserving, something that is worth preserving, something that is worth upholding. And liberalism, on the other hand, says things are fluid, things are
Hmm.
relative, and things are subject to change.
Hmm.
And while I think that there is groupthink on both sides, here's my equal opportunity abuse here,
Yeah.
that there's groupthink on both sides, but I think that conservatism looks to circle the wagons around an ideal or principle or belief, and that helps to keep everyone in the fold. It
Hmm.
helps to keep everyone locked in a place. um, in in mortuary science, there is a term called setting the features. In other words, this is where you fix the mouth, you fix the eyes to make a presentable appearance to the bereaved. And that is what I think of conservatism is basically setting the features on something that is dead. It's saying, okay, we want to make this look good, make this palatable to those who are seeing it, but underneath it has no power. Underneath it's dead, and they know that it's dead, but they insist on dressing it up, propping it up, putting it on display as if it were something. And when I think about, and again, I'm not I'm not giving liberalism a hall pass here, because
Right.
liberalism has its own fucked up, you know, um, ideologies as well. But what conservatism does by nature, by definition, is to hold things back. It is literally the opposite of progress, because another term for liberal is progressive. In
Right.
other words, the idea is to advance, whereas conservatism is to react and uh, restrain.
Right.
So that's this group think, I believe it by stifling individual thought, it stifles creativity. And it's funny, just before, literally 30 minutes ago, I was on the phone with a colleague and we were talking about another colleague of ours who we have both tried to get him into our respective organizations, right?
Hmm.
Because we worked with him before jointly, and and we all left the company that we worked for, and now he's the one that's unemployed. And the thing is that when you um, basically there is an ideological perspective, and this particular guy was not considered progressive enough, not considered to be a big game hunter, right? And so that was the thing that held him back. And when we try to use our power, our influence to help, to move things,
Excuse me.
but there's something uh restraining us, something that's holding us back. um I don't now I kind of lost where I was going with this, but the point is that creative thing that oh this is the point, this was the point. And I told him, I said that when I interview people for a position, the number one thing that I'm looking for is creative thinking. That's the number one thing. I don't care whether or not you are the stud, the superstar, the champion of doing the thing. What I want to know is, how creative are you with it? Are you going to adhere to some rigid standard as far as how it's supposed to be done, or are you going to unleash your creativity to bring about a bespoke solution to a problem? And that's the thing, that when we think about groupthink, we're stifling that creative process. That's the point that I was getting to. I'm not as old as not as old as I thought I am.
Yeah, the problem I see in politics is, um, particularly in a democratic society, and I know people are going to argue and say we live in a republic, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to. What do you call it? Splice hairs over that.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to get a majority to vote for you, to put you in power, I mean that's kind of a scary thing if you think about it. The majority put you in power, um, and so absolutely, political parties want to create a groupthink in a democratic society because that's what empowers them, and so they can thrive on that sort of groupthink. And the more they can divide, which we see, so clearly in our country. I thought it was a shame today. Um, we were talking, and one of my son goes to a Christian school still, my youngest, and so they're very conservative. I mean, they drank the Kool-Aid. Most of the leadership, their staff. There's one teacher who is a quote unquote Biden supporter. You can't even say liberal now. You should say Biden supporter.
Mm.
And but she doesn't talk about it. And I said, well, what about the Trump supporters? So are they allowed to talk about it? And my wife said, no, they're not allowed. Nobody's supposed to talk about politics. They're not supposed to talk about it at all. And I thought, that's really a shame, because we ought to, in schools, be teaching our children how to have civil political dialogue and
Yep.
discourse in this country, so that we can
Yes.
get back to that, instead of this bullshit that we have to deal with now, where everybody, it's so taboo. It's become taboo, Derrick. It's become taboo in any kind of collective setting like that, where you're trying to reach where you're trying to reach a lot of people. It's taboo to talk about politics now. It's a taboo subject, literally a
Yeah.
taboo subject.
Yeah.
And that's terrible. I think that's terrible. But anyway, enough for that soapbox. I want to address a question that Carl had that I saw come up in the comments. He said, can we use groupthink to our advantage if we know the limitations and dangers, or no? And then he says, is groupthink ever beneficial? And I don't know, Derrick, you want to give your input on that first? I have some thoughts on that, but do you want to give your input on that
Yeah.
first?
You know, I, I think that, just like we said at the onset, that unity can be used for good or bad. And I think that there's an infinite spectrum of landing points in between the poles of that. Um, I think again that when we come together for a common good, um, I would say that they're probably the two closest things to a common good that we could talk about in this country would be the Civil War and World War II. That the ideology that we were up against was very clearly defined, and that ideology was clearly not in the best interests of all people. So when you have a rallying or a unity around something that has a broader benefit, I think that some form of groupthink might actually be beneficial. And to Carl's point, I think that that actually could be workable, it could be tenable. But I think that in most cases, groupthink tends to align itself with mob mentality. It tends to align itself with harm instead of good. That it tends to look at tearing down instead of building up. And again, to go back to our original premise in the book of Genesis and the story of the Tower of Babel, I don't think that this was a story about that unity is bad. I think that it literally is a story about what is possible when people come together, and that that there could be a good or a bad to it. And here's the thing, that when you think about it, the people were saying, let us make a name for ourselves. And again, when I think about God, right, God had to be horribly insecure and narcissistic to react the way he did if he exists, because here the people are just simply saying, hey, we want to speak for ourselves, and we're going to erect a monument to our unity on this matter, which I don't think is a completely horrible thing. I think that I what and here's this is what I think. I think that that story is in there to promote the idea that religion promotes, that anything that people decide to do for something that's outside the spectrum of religion, that it's bad. I
Mhm.
think that that story serves as a proverb to to stifle what Carl was saying, a useful use of groupthink. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I think it needs to be nuanced. So again, groupthink, this concept came out of social psychology and organizational psychology, and so the term itself is negative. So it doesn't mean, and I thought you did a great job of nuancing the differences there, Derrick. Like, it doesn't mean that we're not shooting for the same thing, or that we're not in unity in the sense of we're functioning as a unit, or uh, we have the same objectives and the same goals. What groupthink was specifically diagnosing or targeting was when you get a group of people who have a similar objective or a similar way of thinking, this is one of the side effects
Mhm.
that can sneak in. And so there's different types of groupthink. There's, sort of the cultic groupthink, where you have the one really strong leader, and then you have the group that follows the leaders, and then anybody outside that challenges. Really, it's about the leader's power. It's about the leader maintaining power.
Mhm.
That's not the only kind of groupthink. I think, we talked about the Bay of Pigs. I think the war on terror specifically the WMDs in Iraq, from what I understand and what I've
Dude,
read and what I've seen,
yes.
that was a classic example of groupthink. We don't want
Yep.
anyone challenging our reasoning for this war in Iraq, and so you miss this. You miss some really important stuff, and so just technically speaking, groupthink in and of itself is a negative concept, but we're not talking about a group thinking together. So, for example, I'll give you two examples of the opposite of this.
Oh, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, of
This
course.
is a great nuance or great distinction between groupthink and unity.
Hmm.
I mean, that you just nailed it right there. But keep going, man, because
Yeah.
again, I'm expanding in real time.
Who's the guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich? Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
You know, if you read his book, basically, I mean, I don't know how people miss it. I guess some people miss it when they read the book, but it's not just about you thinking. You know, people think and grow rich. Okay, think positive thoughts, think about being rich and all that stuff. No, what Napoleon Hill was really saying was you need to have a group mind. He called it the mastermind. You have to have a mastermind group. So, for example, there are things, Derrick, that I know you are smarter than I am about, and I'm glad about that. I mean,
Yep. Likewise.
my goal is not to be the smartest guy in the room ever. Now, some people would think that it is. I know that because they've told me, but genuinely, I want people who are smarter than me in different areas, and I want your input on various different things because of what you're going to bring to the table, right? There's other people that I know that are smart in various different areas. And so since I read that book years ago, Think and Grow Rich, I've been like, okay, I want to find a mastermind group. And the mastermind group is, you know, people that have expertise and intelligence and think differently than you, who contribute to the collective mind, out of which then we can make a decision, if that makes sense. So that means my idea needs to be challenged because my idea might not be right. And if my idea is not right, I mean, there's a difference between the drunk uncle, like you used to say, the crazy uncle at Thanksgiving dinner
Yeah.
that starts talking. I mean, there's a difference between, and people used to always tell me how to pastor the church or how to grow the organization or how to do this or that. And they'd never done shit.
Right.
They couldn't even run a home group. Like, I'm just not going to listen to you. I mean, I just got to the point where like, I'm not going to listen to you. But now other people who were more successful than me or more effective than me in various different areas, I want to hear from them because I want to make a good decision out of a group mind, which is a mastermind, which is totally different than groupthink. And then the second example that I will give is remember I went to, now I can't verify this, but I went to a leadership conference, back in 2000. And they talked about the whole title of the leadership conference was the Walt Disney strategy. And this is what they said about Walt Disney. Now, I don't know if this is true, but this is what I learned in the conference. Whether it's true or not, it's still a great principle. They said that Walt Disney had 3 rooms before he implemented anything. Cartoon, movie, new ride at Disney World, whatever it was. Before he implemented a plan, he took it through 3 stages in 3 separate rooms. The first one was the dream room. And so he would get a group of people together in that room and he would bring forth the dream. This is the vision. This is the goal. This is what we want to accomplish. And who was not allowed in those conversations was anyone who was a naysayer, anyone who thought it can't be done. No critical thinking at all. All we're doing right now is formulating the vision, what we want to accomplish, the goal. I mean, think about it. He would spend time with a group of people just formulating a goal. Not how to reach it, just what goal do we want to achieve.
Yep.
And I was talking to somebody this week about the difference between surviving and thriving. When you're in survival mode, and this is where a lot of people live, you have mostly binary choices. And here's what I mean by mostly binary choices. Do I take the job that pays me $15 an hour, or do I take the job that pays me $20 an hour? Do I stay with the person in the abusive relationship, or do I become homeless? Like survival living, although it sucks, is easy because you mostly have binary choices.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious.
Yep.
This choice is better than this choice. Thriving is a totally different thing because you've got a million choices and all of them are good.
Yeah.
And the word decision in the English means to cut off.
Right.
So when you make a decision, so if I have 1,000 possible outcomes, you know, we were talking about some of this before we came on air. If I have 1,000 possible outcomes of where I can go, what I can do, and all that kind of stuff, and all of them are enticing, if I make a decision, I'm cutting off 999
Right.
to choose the one. So he would spend a lot of time thinking about what the goal and the outcome was going to be. And then he had the planning room. And so this would be a different group of people who were strategic thinkers, who were detail thinkers. You know, in the dream room, it's the big picture type people. In the planning room, it's okay, give us the strategy. Here's the goal. There's no naysayers allowed in here. How do we get from step 1 to step 100 or whatever to reach our goal? Give me a good strategy and plan. Then he had a third room, which was the critics room. And I love this. It's changed my life. He would send it to the critics room. Now, if you were a critic, you could not challenge the vision. You could not challenge the goal and say it couldn't be done. But what he wanted you to do was pick apart every aspect of the strategy for why it wouldn't work and what could go wrong. And after they picked it apart, he would throw it back into the planning room and say, okay, figure out here's the bugs, figure out the bugs.
Right.
And it wasn't until it got through all 3 stages that the critics finally said, we think this will work, that he would then go out and implement something. And between that and learning about groupthink, that kind of changed. I remember in 2008, we completely restructured our church, totally restructured it. And you know those people in your church, and I just saw Bishop Broadnax said I love it, and so he can relate because he's led religious organizations. But anybody that's led an organization doesn't have to be a church. That's just what I can relate to, is what I know you can relate to. You always have that critic, that person that they're going to tell you what you're doing wrong, how you're doing it wrong. And we didn't find any value in that person. And that's the danger of groupthink. So when you have groupthink, when you have the critic, you think, God, I don't want to see that person. I don't want to talk to that person. You almost want to greet them and say, what am I doing wrong now? Right? Walt Disney, if this is all true, but this strategy, which I learned is the Disney strategy, found value in those critics. And so what I realized was, I want the critic. I absolutely want the critic. I absolutely want the naysayer. I just don't want them in my dream room. And I don't necessarily want them in my planning room, because they'll kill it. They'll stifle creativity. But I absolutely want them to pick apart whatever my plan is before I engage in it, because in my zeal, in my optimism, in my arrogance and ego and whatever else is in play there as a human being, if I don't have that, I'm going to misstep. And I think that's why a lot of people aren't successful. And I'm getting off totally on a tangent. But I think one of the reasons people fail at the law of attraction, people fail financially, people fail in any realm of life, is they don't put that much effort and preparation before they even take the first step.
And like you were talking about critics, and I think I did a podcast on this about critique versus criticism, and there's a huge nuance between those two, because I'm all about the critique. Aaron, you're someone who will critique me. You'll say, hey, have you thought about this? Maybe if you do it this way, it could be better. All of your feedback is positive. It's never negative. And it's always edifying, right? It's always for my growth. And so I receive your critique. You're someone who I give license to speak in my life, right? But there are some people that all they do is criticize. They want to pick apart everything that you do. They want to tear down what you do. They don't want to give any edification. Everything that you do is just completely shitty and it's wrong, right? Those people I exclude altogether. They don't get to sit in any one of those 3 rooms.
Exactly. Exactly. And Disney would have said the same thing, from what I understand, when we were learning that. Yeah, they don't belong.
because you said something key, that the critic was not allowed to criticize the vision.
Exactly.
They only could criticize the strategy, the how to, but not the why.
Yes.
And that's the thing. So when someone comes to me and says something about my how, my what, my when, my where, and they do it in a positive way, because like, hey, have you considered this? This might improve this. This might escalate this. This might make this exponential. This might make this grow. I'm all for it. I'm there for it. But it's like, when there are some people that all they do is they want to tear down. They want to tear apart. And I honestly have zero time or tolerance for those folks. So I'm going on a tangent on your tangent, but I want to circle this back to this one last point, right? And that is individual responsibility. The groupthink discourages individual responsibility, and I'm going to tell you something, that this is the age that we are living in, because if everybody is responsible for their own actions, everybody has to fall on their own sword, or win by their own sword, then everything is cool. But what happens is that, like, okay, I'm not, I'm not responsible. Okay, let me put this into stark relief here. The cult of Trump. People say, I'm not responsible for that. But you voted for that. You supported that, and you still support it. But you say, I'm not responsible for what other people do. And what you're doing is you're engaging in a form of groupthink that abrogates your own personal responsibility. You're not taking ownership of the shit that you cause. It's like, if you take a shit, it's up to you to wipe your own ass, unless you're a baby.
I have two friends left that I enjoy having in my life, who are conservatives and Trump supporters. I think both of them have blocked you, by the way, Derrick.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And I've challenged these guys. I challenged the other, because I mean, at some point after January 6th, I'll just be frank. After January 6th, it was no longer about politics for me. It was about morals. It was about, what kind of person are you? Because I cannot, in my mind, fathom how anyone can justify what's happened on that side of the aisle. So then I have to question your intelligence. I'm questioning your intelligence. I have to question your judgment, but most importantly, I have to question your morality and character and what kind of a person you are. And I had to make some really hard decisions. And so for me, it was about, I don't want these kinds of characters influencing me. It wasn't like, I hate you and I don't want to be around you. It was,
No.
I don't want you influencing my thinking. I don't want you influencing my children. I don't want you influencing my life, because it's no longer about politics. It's about morals. But I've kept two people, both of whom I met on Facebook. So these are not people I go hang out and drink a beer with.
Okay.
And I just like them as people. Whatever.
Yeah.
I still can't get their side of things, but I've challenged them. And here's the thing. I've challenged them and I said, look, if you're a decent person, which I believe you are, I cannot understand why you have not spoken out at this stage of the game.
Right.
I cannot understand. So if I were going to remain, I've changed a lot of my conservative values. I've changed on pro-choice. We could talk about that sometime with all that stuff that's in the news lately.
Yeah.
I've changed my opinion on economics to a large degree.
Yep.
Social issues, all that stuff. Because I was informed by my quote unquote Christian ethic, which was really an American nationalism, fascist Christian bullshit.
Mhm.
But that's what I was under. That was
You and me
the
both.
groupthink and the
Yep.
mind that I was under, right? And so I've changed a lot of those thoughts and a lot of those, whatever. Shit, I forgot where I was going.
Yeah, you changed a lot of these conservative values and all of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you need to speak out. So I'm validating what you're saying, but it's the group think. So here's the issue. It's the group think and the pressure from the group think and a little bit of ego that honestly prevents them from speaking out. I honestly think with both these individuals that I've gotten to know fairly well, that in their hearts, they are good individuals, but they cannot stand up to the groupthink that's in their
Mm,
life.
yep.
They cannot stand up to the groupthink that's in their life. Now, I can fault them for that, or I can have compassion and understanding on them
Yep.
for that. But I think you hit on a major key here, and this is why we love groupthink. This is why we love religion. This is why we love messiahs, even if they're orange and they grab women by the beep.
Pussy.
Because it alleviates the burden of personal
Responsibility.
responsibility. And that is a burden. And that's not a burden that everyone in this life is willing to accept and take up.
Each and every one of us, we have a burden to bear. Um, and people will say, "Well, I'm not my brother's keeper," and I think that is one of the most destructive thoughts that's ever been devised by man. That we are indeed our brother's keeper. That we are indeed responsible
Mhm.
for something greater than, and not even the greater than, but it's something beyond us, beyond our own borders. And it just troubles me that people will say, well, uh, that's just I that I'm just going with the flow. I'm just um, doing what I think is right. I'm going along with what I think is the popular trend, and people get caught in this. It's almost like I say this all the time. Like the last popularity contest that I was involved in was when I was in talk radio, and I was a slave to the arbitrons. You know, what are the ratings, right? So you're a slave to the ratings, and then before that, it was like high school. You're homecoming king or captain of the football team or whatever. You're a slave to some popularity construct.
Mhm.
But as you grow up and grow out, you have to realize that you're not beholden to those things anymore, and that you bear a particular responsibility. That's just like I think about elections, right? And people will say, well, you know I've voted for Trump, but a whole bunch of other people voted for Trump, so what does it mean? What does it matter? And they assign the responsibility of the subsequent shitstorm to populism. That this is something that everybody is into. You know, and I'm going to say this: there is a person that is a Facebook friend of mine, and his mother saw a photograph of a black man that had been burned and skinned alive, and she recognized one of the men in that photograph as her father. Now, there will be people that will look at that photograph and say, well, that was just the way people thought then. That was the way things were then. And they will absolve themselves of any personal responsibility. But I got to say this about my friend's mom, is that she inboxed me horribly contrite
Mm.
that this had anything to do with her.
Mm.
And she was like, she said, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right.
Wow.
It's a true story.
Mhm.
I can't share names, but this is a
Mhm.
true story. You know, I swear on my mom kind of thing, right? Um, this and that's the problem with groupthink, is that we do things in this collective and we say, well, I just got caught up in the moment. The passion of the moment overwhelmed me. It took over me, and I just got caught up. And they'll say it wasn't my fault. I didn't actually do it. January 6th, there are a whole bunch of people that say, hey, I just got caught up in the moment. I didn't do it. I didn't kill anybody. I didn't hurt anybody, but I was, and they're not accepting responsibility for just being there and for catalyzing the whole situation.
You know, yeah.
Go ahead, man.
I'm just sitting here growing in real time. I'm growing in real time with you, Derrick, as I'm listening. And I'm changing my mind on January 6th.
Hmm.
I'm just going to let that sit there for a second because I know the shock value. It's like I talked about the Iraqi war earlier. It's like shock and awe. I'm going to give you another shock moment. I'm grateful for the Trump administration, and I'm grateful for January 6th. And I know you and other listeners are like, what the fuck?
No, no,
What was in that
no,
drink?
no,
No.
dude.
Let
I'm
me.
right there with you. I'm right there with you. And go
Here's
ahead.
why. Because if it didn't do this for anybody else, somebody commented, I think it was Sandra, said, I've been watching the comments. Sandra says, sometimes I wonder if the whole, or Sandra, sorry, I need to get Sandra, I'm at the age I need bifocals, and fuck that shit. I am growing old, fighting it with every fiber of my being. Sometimes I wonder if the whole
Progressive lenses, Aaron. Progressive lenses. That's the answer.
Okay, good to know. See, that's why you're in my mastermind. Sometimes I wonder if the whole Trump era helped catapult some of us into deconstruction and oneness seeking. I'm not a oneness seeker, so I'm gonna caveat off of that because I'm gonna come back to that in a minute. But absolutely, Donald Trump helped me deconstruct.
Yep. Without a
Absolutely,
doubt. Without a
showed me
doubt.
the bullshit of it and helped me deconstruct. And I voted for Gary Johnson in that election
I did
because
too.
my mom would have killed me if I hadn't voted. Because like I would say I'm not voting, and she was like really offended. So I voted for Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate, because I could not allow my personal accountability to endorse anything that had to do with Trumpism. And when I saw the church getting behind that, that helped me deconstruct. January 6th is helping me, or help me, and it's helping me deconstruct from the myth of from the myth of American nationalism, and it's helping me deconstruct a whole other religion that I grew up with in rural white America, and that is American nationalist religion.
You and me both, man. I mean,
So I'm grateful. I never saw
I'm
that before,
grateful.
Derrick.
Yeah.
I never
No,
saw that
listen,
before. Tell
I'm
me.
with you. I'm right there with you. I am grateful for the 4 years of Trump. I'm grateful for January 6th. I'm grateful, grateful, grateful because here's the thing that you don't know what a problem is until the problem is diagnosed.
Right.
If you never get a diagnosis, you don't know what the problem is and you don't know how to treat it. You have no clue. But now we know. We know exactly what the problem is. We know exactly what this or what direction the solution is in. We know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful. I mean, and here's the thing that without Trump, without January 6th, without the Christian support, the evangelical support of Trump, without that, I would not have ascended to atheism. It wouldn't have been possible. I would have still been stuck in religion. I mean, so I'm grateful. I'm
Yeah.
grateful. This has helped me. We talk about growing in real time all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it's like this and now with this whole abortion thing, and this is a topic for another show
Right.
altogether. But this whole thing now, I- listen, reproductive rights are women's rights. Women's rights are human rights. So if we
Come on,
deconstruct that,
men's lives matter. Sorry,
you
I
know,
couldn't resist.
not
I'm
listen.
sorry, Derrick.
I'm with you, man. But
I'm sorry.
you
I'm
know,
being an asshole.
I say this that he who is without a uterus should shut the fuck up. That's
Yeah.
Philippians 13:13.
That'll be a fun one to do. So I want to bring this in. I saw Doug's watching. I think Doug Wentz maybe still on, and he made some comments. But one of the things Doug opened my eyes to was this thing called the left-hand path. And without going into all the nuances of it, a person
And you opened my eyes to the left-hand path. But keep going.
left-hand path is about breaking out of groupthink, basically. That's basically what it is. And that's why, and I understand when we're talking about oneness, we're again, because I saw Sandra's comment about oneness, but oneness is a concept that can mean a million different things to different people, depending on what they refer back to. But for me, what's interesting about the left-hand path is the left-hand path is a rebellion. It's a path of rebellion, but it's a holy rebellion that's against groupthink. And not everybody is ready for that. Not everybody's ready to break with the group, to let their own light shine, to find their own authentic. Like I'll just be honest with you. Grab women by the pussies, make fun of disabled people, uh, narcissism in general is just not a value of mine. It's not something that I value at all.
Yeah.
And so I can't, and I wish I could explain to people that feel like, I've betrayed them or whatever. And, some people like, well, like I lost some really close, really, really people that were close to me in my life because they're like, well, I don't exalt politics above relationships. And I said this to them and I'll say it again. In this time period we're in, if you're supporting that bullshit by your silence, which incidentally, groupthink, one of the key elements that supports groupthink is silence. The guy who's thinking, oh, this isn't going to work. I don't agree with this. I don't like this, but keeps his mouth shut out of social pressure is contributing to groupthink.
Yeah.
And if that's you, you've got issues. You've got issues in your soul you need to work out. And I don't want you in my life. I don't want you part of my life. I don't want you part of my kids' life. So that's just the bottom line. Now, if you want to work through that or whatever, but that's my choice. And it's not because I hate you or any other thing. It's that I'm trying to free my mind. For me,
Yep.
it's part of the left-hand path.
Yep.
So I don't know. We want to look at Ben Urban says,
Yeah,
Holy
it's time.
Thelema.
It's time to look at Holy Thelema. I'm with you on that, Ben. You know, there was a whole documentary on Thelema, and I forget
Yeah.
who it was, but there was some noteworthy scientist that was involved in the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Yeah,
And
it was Parsons.
yeah,
John Parsons. John,
John
I can't remember his
Parsons.
first name. Yeah,
Yeah,
Parsons. Yeah,
yep. But that's it. And
yeah.
that was one of those ones when I looked at it, I was like, wow. And then when you look at man, the Nazis were really into some crazy and I let me say this. Let me backtrack that. Because I say crazy, but it wasn't really so crazy after all. I mean, they were on to some spiritual revelations um, that were outside orthodoxy. I mean, and there's I'm just gonna give somebody some conspiracy shit to to sink their teeth into. But look up the Nazi bell. I think it's called the Glockenspiel, right? And this is a device that may have been a time travel device, may have been an interdimensional travel device.
Interesting.
Yeah, we don't know, but they were really into this, and
Interesting.
supposedly the Allies captured this thing, and there was a sighting of a UFO crash in Pennsylvania around the late 1940s that may have been an Allied or an American attempt at piloting the Nazi bell. Just, just some
Give me
interesting.
1 second.
No, go ahead. I'm going to go through the comments while you're doing that. Um, so my sister Sandra is out there. Sandy, hey, it's good to see you. Good, always good to see you. Love you so much. Uh, Genesis Irima, good evening. Ben Urban is here. C. Rodriguez, Jeanette, Pacheco Peasley is here. Carl Forehand in the house. We talked about we addressed Carl earlier. Esther Amiga is here. Leah Russo Duplechin is
Yeah.
here. Marianne Jenke is here. And let's read some of the so Ben Urban says Yahweh, the author of confusion.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That is, listen, they say God is not the author of confusion. Check your Bible, folks.
True, right? Where did Paul get that? Doug says it's Jack Parsons. So yeah. So Jack Parsons was
Yeah,
the
Jack
lemon
Parsons.
in my
Yeah.
way. So my
No, but
Sandra says
his name is actually John Parsons. So you were
yeah.
right, and Doug is right.
Sandra says I usually text too much when I imbibe wine. Sandra, have you watched the show? Like I talk way too much shit when I imbibe, so no worries. Let's see.
Yeah. Doug Wentz says, yes, setting the features is what happened. I always said that, like, I used to say this, that seminaries are where faith goes to be embalmed, dressed, and put on display. That was something I used to say in my preaching days. Yeah,
Doug
and Ben,
says, "Oh, go ahead. Go ahead."
no, Ben had mentioned the whole mortuary science thing too. They said setting the features. That obviously resonated with some people.
Yeah. It's funny because we started out the conversation talking about that. Doug says someone receives a little light and they take 2 steps out from the center of that white nationalism groupthink room they thought they didn't have. I celebrate those 2 steps, but they think that's it. When you're still there, you manifest as such. Good comment.
Yep. Joe Mashuda says, replying to Carl Forehand, most of all of the advancement of culture came from positive groupthink. And that goes back to what we were saying about positive groupthink, which, and again, I want to distinguish between groupthink and unity.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to call a distinction between the two of those. The unity is when something is positive. Groupthink is when something is negative. So
I
Go
want to
ahead, man.
address this. Carl says, do you think you must always be willing to change all your views to be authentic? Oh man,
God,
that is
that's
a trap. That is a trap because I've seen people, no, seriously, I've seen people change their views for the sake of changing their views and calling it authenticity. I've seen people, I saw this in the church, who were so religious about not being religious that
yeah.
they didn't realize. So no, that's called a reaction formation in psychology. You
Oh,
overreact
nice.
to something. I was programmed to think this way, so therefore all of my thinking is not authentically coming from who I am, and that is a cognitive distortion as well. So no, you are able to speak your views in a group that agrees with you, and you're able to hold true to those views in a group that disagrees with you. Has nothing to do with changing your views in order to be authentic. It's doing the work internally to find out what you and what I would call your soul, your authentic self, resonates with and does not resonate with.
Yep. And I want to pick on Carl for a minute because he's someone that I say does the work.
Yeah, he does.
If you do the work, then you'll find the path. You'll find the way, right? But most people, when they change just to be changing, they're not doing the work. What they're doing is they're finding the path of least resistance.
Yep.
Yeah. So Doug says John, Jack, Whiteside, Parsons. So we were all right.
I think I
And
just lucked out because it didn't feel right.
yeah, and Sandra says that Doug is a deep well. That's
Yeah,
absolutely true.
he is.
Ben Urban says seminaries are cemeteries. I say that all the time. I used to, yeah, I still say that.
Well, it depends because some seminaries wake you up and tell you the truth.
Which ones?
Oh, dude, I have friends that went to Union or went to Claremont, and
Well,
they're like totally
I
on
know some
board.
people that came out of Moody, and I would
Oh,
say,
fuck that. Sorry.
you don't like Moody. I actually like Moody. It's like
I'm sorry. I don't know enough
it's
about it.
no.
Derrick, I'll be honest. I don't know enough about it. I thought it was very evangelical,
It
fundamentalist
it
Bible
is
school.
it
So,
is, but Moody himself, right? That Moody was actually someone who was really steeped in the understanding of what we call grace today, and but it's like when I think of the worst, I'm going to go ahead and call it out. Dallas Baptist Seminary.
come on.
I
You,
it's like I think that Dallas Baptist Seminary is the biggest funeral home in America.
absolutely. You know who went to Moody Bible College?
Hmm.
Daryl, I think. I might be wrong. Daryl Carlson.
Really?
Yeah.
You know
But
something?
we can ask him.
I think you're right. Daryl, are you out here? Did you go to
I
Moody?
haven't seen him. Daryl, if you're watching my replay, let us know. Um, but I hear what you're saying. No, I agree. Yeah,
No, no.
some of those seminaries are cemeteries for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anybody aiming to join us tonight?
Yeah. I put the link out there. I'll put it out here one more time, just in case anybody wants to join in.
I think if we missed your comment, I apologize. I think we tried to hit all the ones that weren't just hello, greetings, that kind of stuff. Anthony says silence is akin to acceptance. That's the shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Tony Calloway to join in.
Yeah, that would be cool. Sandra says if y'all don't follow Doug Wentz, you need to. I agree. I think you brought that out though, Doug. Derrick. So I'm being redundant. So I'm gonna quit scrolling
No,
comments.
no problem, man. I don't mind looking like Doug. Doug is a good looking guy. If I was a girl, I'd date him. Heck, if I was a guy, I'd date him. If I was a guy that if I went that way, yeah, yeah.
I
Doug is
love
hot.
that. Funny. I think he's put this out publicly, I'm sure, on some of the stuff we've done together. I think he was a male stripper at one point.
Oh man,
In
explains
his
a whole lot.
backslidden days. Before he
Yeah,
came back to Jesus.
I never was a male stripper, but I've been a bouncer. I've been a bouncer.
Shit, I was goody two shoes, man. I was Mr. Clean. I knew shit. I didn't even try cannabis until I was in my 40s.
Nah, man, I was a legitimate bad boy. Legitimate, like I could have went to prison kind of bad boy. Oh,
Yeah.
Calloway says, replying to Sandra Whitley, I feel somewhat to your point. At some point, there has to be an evolution to beliefs and views, and more importantly, growth in those. In that, our identity should be known, and thus it should make the idea of those beliefs and values authentic and not just reflective of someone else's thoughts and viewpoints. Amen, Tony.
Doug says, yes, I was a stripper for bachelor. Oh, shit. For bachelorette parties.
Oh, man.
1992 to 1994. So glad I didn't betray any confidences there. I was pretty sure he put that out.
Doug, you scored a lot, didn't you, in your younger days? How many notches do you have on your belt, Doug? Dougie Fresh.
Oh, that's funny. Just let me just say this, Doug, Derrick, anybody, nobody's ever wanted to see me strip. Not in my younger years, and certainly not today.
Well, you know what? There was a time when I was in the Navy on active duty that I had what you called a real beach body. You know, I had the pecs, I had the abs, you know, I had the guns. You know, I was, yeah, I had it going on, but I never did.
I bet you did.
I never did do the stripping though. I think I missed out.
Esther says, you two are just jealous. I don't know about Derrick because he had the beach body. I'm jealous. I just put it out there. And I only had the one drink for anybody that thinks. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, people
Just
accuse
enough
us
to
of
let
being drunk all the
just
time.
enough to let the real me come out.
Esther says we are just jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm going to admit it. It's like, you know, anybody. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of how I could say this without actually putting. But I have some friends that have been male strippers. You know, and it was very good to them. It was very good to them.
Can this go on for another hour? Unfortunately, not.
Unfortunately, no. Yeah.
But we should do a Tequila Tuesday sometime. That would really be fun. Imagine Derrick and Aaron with 6 or 7 shots of tequila.
Yeah, there you go.
It would be a total meltdown. We get kicked off Facebook.
Well, you know, it's funny. Like Ben Urban had said, you know, when he came on, when he was our guest, and he's like, okay, well, what are we going to talk about? And he gave a subject, and he says, well, I don't know how much mileage we can get out of this. I said, shit, man. I said, you know, booze and profanity are superpowers.
So exactly. Your buddy Anthony Calloway says, does dating a stripper count? Oh, Anthony.
You know
no. Does witnessing to strippers count? I should have been out dating strippers. I was witnessing to them. I was giving them Bible tracts.
No, Aaron, that does not count.
I was giving them Bible tracts.
But you know, there's a lady who runs a legit ministry that's called Hookers for Jesus, and she was an ex-stripper in Vegas, and that's all she does. She ministers to women in the strip clubs.
I saw an article somewhere about swingers for Jesus. Like this couple was into swinger clubs and stuff, and they were using that as a means. They were using that as a means to witness to the world There's friendship evangelism. Remember that friendship
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
evangelism? And
Uh-huh.
there's friendships with benefits evangelism. Now.
Oh my God. Okay. So
That's a true story.
that if you ever see a flag outside someone's house of a pineapple, right? And the pineapple is upside down, that's an indication that they're a swinging couple, right? So what if you find someone with an upside down pineapple and some Jesus paraphernalia on the porch?
Well, there you go. Derrick, I can honestly say I've never seen a house with an upside down pineapple
Well,
flag.
now
But
you're
I
going to
might
be
be
looking
looking
now.
now. Oh, that's hilarious. That I don't even want to know how you know that. Let's move on.
Yeah. But Tony, to your point, yes, I dated strippers because I was a bouncer in a strip club. That was the thing to do. It was shooting fish in a barrel. I'm sorry, but that's the way it was.
Wait, I got a suit from Doug. He says if you self-actualizers polyamorous, great. Just don't use it to get in the community to win. Come
Oh
on,
my
man.
God.
They're hey, what
In
is
other
more
words,
these
don't
people,
use your swinging to evangelize.
dude, these people are going to hell, Doug. They're going to hell. If you really love them, you can show them your love in
Oh
many
my
ways.
God. Tony Calloway said it means that they're swingers and they'll be expecting you to leave an offering.
Oh God. Hopefully it's not an STI.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly, especially that one. That's the worst. From what I hear, I don't know anything about it. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, I thought about that too. Tender Anna Hart says, "Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?"
Yeah.
Hold on, buddy.
Sandra Whitley says, how about the Tide boxes in the window on the base at Minot, North Dakota? Now that's a new one. Sandra, you're going to have to explain that a little bit.
I'm suggesting that's another signal, like the upside down pineapple.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my deduction.
Oh my God.
Okay, so
Tony.
I'm looking for upside down pineapples and Tide boxes. And socks hanging over the telephone pole.
Yeah. And Tony Calloway says, and if there are seconds, there will be a second offering and a prayer line. Healed.
What about the meetings were you ever in a meeting, Derrick? This is devolving quickly. Were you ever in a meeting where the offering came in at the beginning and the pastor stood up after the service and said we didn't get enough in the offering and kept everybody? Yeah. So I'm thinking about that with the seconds. Like wait. That wasn't good enough. We need to get some more out of you.
Listen, I got to say this. I shit you not. I was in a church in Detroit, right? And basically when the service started, they chained the doors shut. So you were locked in, right? And the pastor said, until we meet our offering goal, we're not unlocking these doors. I shit you not. I was like, and here's the thing. I don't know if my mother is watching, but she can vouch for me on this because she was there. We went together to this church.
Wow. Yeah, we're short and the Lord is. Yeah, I was in a service like that. That was crazy, man. I couldn't believe that. I was like, holy crap. Anthony says, we're short and the Lord is saying there's another 1,000. Oh, dude, these guys were shooting way higher than that. I think there was 10 people that were going to give $1,000 in this meeting.
Yeah. 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 True story. You couldn't leave. I'm like, and here's the thing, right? I always say to people that 50% of the time that I leave the house, I'm strapped. I have a firearm. 50% of the time. 50% of the time, I don't. It's like play at your own risk. But it was like, on this particular day, I did, you know. And I was like, you know, I said, I could shoot my way out of this.
It reminds
But
me, did you ever see The Cross and the Switchblade with Eric Estrada and Pat Boone? And Pat Boone plays David
no.
Wilkerson, and Eric Estrada plays Nicky Cruz. I think at one point in the movie, because he was ministering to gangs in New York City, they were taking up the offering, and the gang members were like pulling switchblades and stuff to get people to give more in the offering. I think that was in the movie. I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. You know what? Here's what I think. I think this is divine. I think we should put our cash apps out there, and until there's at least $1,000 in each cash app, we're not stopping.
Oh my God, yes.
We're gonna go on and
Yeah,
on.
we're going on through Saturday and Sunday. We won't stop until it's $1,000 in both
Somebody will give
Aaron
us
and mine's cash
$1,000 to
apps.
shut up.
You know something? There's some evangelicals that would pay for us to shut up.
I know. Where do you think I got the idea? All right.
All right, so I guess nobody's joining in, and we've gone through some of the comments, and Sandra Whitley says the Lord doesn't need your help; He just needs your money. Spoken just like George Carlin. Yep. So Aaron, I think it's Friday night, so you need to order your youngin's pizza.
I do.
Yep. And actually, Angela beat me to the punch today. She ordered some food, so I already have some food, so I just got to nuke
Sweet.
mine. Uh, but yeah, man. So since we're out of here, go ahead and give the closing, brother.
Peace and hair grease and chicken grease
Goddamn right.
and gravy and all that good stuff.
Hair grease, chicken grease,
Grace,
gravy,
peace,
grease, grease.
greasy grace.
Sloppy agape. Dude, love y'all.
Likewise.
All right.